Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. This is Michael Wine here, aka Gundamonium Works, and this is part 10. Weathering 2.0. Yeah. We're still weathering the kit, the Tomahawk, and so yeah, this will be part 2 of that. It's part 10 of the project, but part 2 of the weathering project, part of it. Anyway, I've also got a cool little reveal for tonight. So we're going to be showing off something new. What's up, Nick? Nick is on. Tyler's on. Oh, look at that face. Yeah, it's a new camera. I'm probably going to get one of these coming, when Black Friday or something like that. Or like an Amazon Prime Day or something like that. We'll figure it out. But I'm going to get something... probably buy it. I just noticed it dropped like $45 already on Amazon, so I'll have to do it again. Anyway, let's get down to the bench here. Let's see what's going on so far. And so the legs are pretty much done as far as weathering and everything else. So right leg, left leg, nothing's glued together yet. Except for the knee, I glued this section together, but the feet are still wobbling around because I've got to, when I go ahead to glue this, I've got to make sure I have the right angle. Everything's got to be flat. So the challenge is going to be to put the waist joint in there and get everything pressed in and tight and glued, but also be flat because I want to go. I've actually got a little bullet level here that I'm going to use to make sure that it's flat, because obviously I don't want it tilted if I go to put the torso on and the thing's all kind of wonky. So that's going to be the hardest part, I think, of setting this up. But anyway, as you can see, I can zoom in here and we can take a little bit of closer look at these. Give me one sec, because it takes a second for the zoom to pop up. Okay, here we go. Actually, we'll go a little bit more. So yeah. So now you guys can see the chipping that was done, scratching, chipping, scratches and stuff like that, all done with two mystery colors, number 41, red, brown. And then over that, I went with the super iron, number 203, on some of the heavier areas that would be chipped basically down to bare metal. See, like on the toe here, some of the parts of the foot and the ankle, and then also even some of the parts of the leg and stuff like that, like the shin. Anywhere there would be excessive, contact with other things, like especially in the feet, and starting from the ground up. That's what I wanted to do, was make it look like, as it progressively gets higher and higher up, there's going to be less and less damage to these areas, to areas of the kit, just because by nature, the feet and legs are going to take the most brunt of any, damage, and through just natural, through regular work, just moving around, stuff like that. So I've got my lenses in here. I replaced these with the ones that came with it because they just didn't fit right. They were tight top to bottom, and I was having a discussion with Moscato because he knew I'd mentioned him on one of my posts when I posted some pictures, and he's like, well, you just got to coat the leg with a couple of coats of primer, and then what's up, Julius? A couple coats of primer, and then coat the lens with a couple of coats of clear primer or something, then it should fit in there nice and tight. And it's like, well, it did fit tight top to bottom, but it was the sides, because of the shape of the lens that he provided with the kit. They were straight lines, whereas the opening actually had gaps on either side. So I sacrificed an old clear storage box that I had, cut some lenses out, made my own, and they fit in there nice and tight all the way around. So I started weathering a little bit of the lower. This is the cod piece area, the lower torso, the waist section. I still have to do the top. I was just kind of started with the bottom. I hadn't done any chipping yet on this. You may remember when I was doing the decals, I accidentally ripped off this corner on that broadcast. Two broadcasts ago, I was doing decals, and I actually tore this one. So I went back in and I painted it just by hand. You can kind of see it's not perfect, but that's okay because I'm going to, when I do my chipping and stuff like that, I'm going to obviously blemish that area on purpose to make it look like it's supposed to be that way. This is how we cover up our little mistakes and things like that. So I still have the upper torso to do. That's going to be the biggest piece, and then the arms, these guys here. I still have these to do as well, which will look really cool because I'm sure the ends of the barrels are going to be figured up pretty good. A lot of chipping, a lot of damage, and then I have the 2 hatch covers too for the torso that have to be done as well. So, anywho, let's see what's next up on the. I mean, I could start working on this, or I could show you what came in the mail the other day. What do you guys want to see? I know the answer to the question. I'm just asking, just for the fun of it, because I know what you guys want to see. You want to see what just showed up. All right, fine. Mail call. We'll do a mail call. Quick one anyway. See who else joins in. Yeah. Of course, Angel knows. You saw pictures of it. It's massive. Okay, I'm going to get this stuff out of the way here enough that I can bring up what I need to show here. So look at the legs and the waist. Set this on the laptop. Not going to be a problem. I've been using mostly these 2 oil brushers and these 2 Tamiya A and B kits for the weathering, and then doing the hand painting, of course. But that's pretty much it. That's all. The only products I've needed to use for this for the weathering portion. So, as many of you know, I ordered what up. I want to see it all. Okay, what's in the box? Mail review. Yes, it's all coming. So, as many of you know, I've had my complaints about this Tomahawk kit, and early on when I was looking at all the blemishes and all the flaws, and I was just like, God, this is for the money, and I was bitching about it. But I did end up buying the latest edition in his that he was selling, and that is the 1/7/2 scale tactical pod gouge. Now he's calling it something else to avoid copyright infringement. I understand, but so it showed up. Perfect timing. Showed up just the other day on Monday, I think it showed up. And anyway, I have here. This is the Bandai 1/7/2 or 1/100 scale. Excuse me. This is a 1/100 scale Bandai. Same kit. This thing is so old it won't even stand up really on its own. Nice looking kit, all hand painted garbage. This was back in the day. I mean, this is decades old. This thing. It's so flimsy now because it's been moved around so much. It barely holds its. The legs barely stay up enough to keep it standing. I actually have it laying down in the cabinet because it won't stand up properly. The bottoms of the feet are hollow. I mean, it's decals that were applied over flat paint with no clear coat over them, and it's just like this was like, believe me, this was old school. But I brought this out because I want to show a size comparison to some of the parts that are in this this new one. So here's what showed up the other day. Get out of the way here. Okay, a lot bigger box than the Tomahawk came in, and for good reason. So let's get it. Let's dig in here. Again, Moscato signed it. Pretty cool, I guess. Parts manifest. I printed that out. Decals. And then 3 bags. I'll go through them little bit by little here. It even has a couple of screws in it. So let's start with this one. Now, one of the things he did with this kit is he molded some of them in a polymer, which needs, in fact, you actually have to bake it before you assemble this. You're supposed to put them in the oven for 4 hours. I can't remember the temperature, but it's basically all of these dark blue parts. Now, what is this part you have? This is half of the foot. So if you take this part of the foot right here, that's what this is. Look how much bigger that thing is. Okay, and here's the deal breaker. This is the lower leg portion. The sheer size of this thing. It's massive. Believe me, it's freaking huge. I kind of put some pieces together and had it standing up on the bench here, and the just to the groin unit itself, where the legs attach, is close to, I think, 10 inches tall. It's just massive. I'm sorry, bake it. Yeah, bake it. Yes, you have to put some of these parts. The polymer needs to be post-cured. Of course, that's what it says in the parts manifest. Let me see if it says it on there. Yeah, it does. Okay, it says, notice, this model is equipped with parts cast in a special high-strength polymer resin. It is imperative that the post-cure these prior to building by placing them in the oven 150 to 175 degrees for 4 hours. This will harden the polymer parts to an optimal strength, omitting this crucial step. Could lead to failure of certain load-bearing parts during and or after assembly. Many of the polymer pieces are also fitted with acrylic inserts for increased strength and 4 to 6, blah, blah, blah. You need drill bits and stuff like that. Well, I did find out because I asked Moscato about it, because some of the parts that he's talking about that have the acrylic rods in them, and I'll show you. Let's see. I think here, this is the lower leg, and then this piece finishes that. So you kind of see that, and then if you took this piece, whoops, plopped it here, that's just the lower leg portion alone. I mean, this thing is, gosh, 1, 2, yeah, it's about almost 9 inches tall just with this leg portion alone. All right. What was I saying? This is one of the foot pads. You can see them here in comparison to the red feet. All right, and then this is the bottom, one of the bottom pieces. Actually, there's different lefts and rights. I'm trying to find one that matches. Here we go. So this is the bottom, and then that will go. I mean, that's just one of the foot portions here that goes on, just like that. But I've got to clean this back piece. It won't fit on the peg properly. So what he is talking about on this, where are they? No, they're in here. Just need to find there where I put them. Okay. And he said that some of these parts were fitted with acrylic rod. This one actually has 2 large acrylic rod pins that come out. This goes into the groin unit, and then this is what attaches to the leg, like so. So that's one of the basically what the freestanding leg will look like. When I contacted him, because I told him, I said, well, the instructions say that these polymer parts need to be baked. What he told me was, his answer was that he's made improvements over the years to the kit, but he hasn't changed his instructions. So only the blue pieces are the ones that need to be baked. And then I think furthermore, only these ones that are blue, like this color, there's another color of blue at the bottom of the feet. These here, these might be polymer. This part of the foot, but I mean, I guess it still has that shiny bit to it, so it's probably anything that's gray. I can leave alone. Anything that's not, I have to put in the oven for 4 hours. So, going further into here, this is the top of the cockpit portion. You can see just the sheer size of it. It's just unreal how big this thing is. Here's one of the gun pods. Look at the size of that thing. Another thing that he did too to increase strength is he's actually put brass rod. This is brass tube, but he's installed these pins into the mold to increase the strength. And I like the way that he's made these hollow. There's the front gun portion that goes on the front of that. Let me grab one of those. There's one there, but the other one I have kind of trimmed down already. So I'm looking for it. As soon as I find it. Well, it's in here somewhere. Oh well, if I can't find it, I'll just use this one. Good Lord. Where is it? Oh, that's the same one I had. Oh well. Nonetheless, that goes on there like that. Once it's all cleaned up, obviously, there's a bunch of pieces that I have to cut off. The one thing that this kit is a lot nicer than the Tomahawk. However, that's not to say it's not without its problems. Already, like this rod here, this is a piece of brass, actually tubing, not rod, that goes down the barrel basically to strengthen this piece. But if you've got a good eye, you can see that that's not straight. And the reason I know it's not straight is because it started. Let's see if it'll focus. It started to poke out of the side of the mold right there. You can see the brass tube coming out through the side. That means it goes down here at an angle. So that also means that if I mount this, it's going to be pointing to the right or to the left. So I'm going to have to probably bend this slightly to get that straight. The other big thing that I saw was one of these legs is, this one's beautiful. There's a couple little things. I've got to drill these holes out. These filled up with resin through the mold process, but those you have to drill them all out so you can actually install new pieces. The reason this leg piece is separate from the bottom is because at one point you have to put a large screw through this into the foot. This is how he's making everything stronger. And by taking these sections of resin out, this is actually almost, it's a very thin layer. It goes all the way through. I could probably actually pop that out because it's really, really a flexible, thin layer of resin in there. I don't even think it's intended to stay, but there's cover panels that go over this, and that reduces the weight significantly. But if you compare this one to the other side, there's a massive mold line that goes up both sides of this. And if you can see, you see all those little rivets? You can even see the line right there. See that mold line? Yeah. That's the part that's disappointing, and I was really hoping that this one was going to come in with far less blemishes, and it has. But really, that's pretty bad. And the problem is these little rivets that are all over this thing are probably going to go away when I go to sand this down enough to get rid of that mold line. It's on both sides of the front facing portion. If you look at the back is really pretty clean, so that's okay. It's just that front, and I don't know why these are so different. They should be symmetrical pieces. I don't think they're any different. So there was probably only one of these molded and then cast. And fortunately, even though I've got to fix all that and probably make some new rivets, and I'm going to have to find it. I should have looked for this sooner, but I do have a somewhere around here. I'm not going to be able to find it right now. I have a rivet tool that is designed to when you press down on it, it looks like a punch, only it's not. When you press down on it, it rotates the bit and creates a circle. It's basically for aircraft, for doing rivets on aircraft. If you needed to, add some that you might have sanded off, or I know some kits out there are really bad and they have to be, you have to sand because they have raised rivets. They shouldn't have raised rivets. You got to sand them off. And anyway, you're basically punching a new one. So when you press down on this tool, it spins that bit, and it's got a little tiny tip, 3 different sizes to make these kind of round, like a recessed looking rivet. So I think I'm probably okay as far as that. If I do sand these off and they're not as visible, I can go back and probably dress those up. So let's see, that's that. So this is I'm just going to kind of throw this together. This is majority of the cockpit here. And this is that polymer plastic. And basically what he says is when you bake this stuff, it finishes the cure on it, but it also becomes very glass-like. He says, don't drop it. And I'm just going, oh my God, are you kidding me? It's going to shatter or something. But I'm really hoping we should be able to still sand it. I don't know. I've never dealt with that kind of polymer type resin before. One of the other big blemishes in this thing, and these aren't little things, they're the ones that are there. They're pretty big. So now you can see this with the hatch in place. Again, these are not fitted. There's still a lot of pieces I got to trim off, but that's basically the cockpit there without the sensor on the front. But I work in the automotive industry, and one of the things we deal with quite often is rats and rodents chewing on plastic and wires, right? Now, Tyler will know me, know exactly what I'm talking about. I've shown him the picture I took of this. I'm going to zoom in to see if you guys can even see it. But it literally looks like a rat or a mouse chewed on the front of this because there's little tiny teeth marks on it. I'm going to zoom in here. Let me go all the way max. Okay. So look at those 2 little notches. They literally look like little teeth marks, right? So somehow I've got to fill that in. You can see the backside there. There's 2 little divots along with the rest. I mean, this is nothing here. That's just some extra that I obviously got to take off. That's no big deal there. But this edge is where the sensor is supposed to go. That's basically where this piece mounts up. Right to the front of it. So I'm going to have to really either build it up with some CA or use epoxy putty, something to build that surface up and make it flat again. And then I'm going to have to do a lot of sanding around here. One of the other things I noticed too about some of these resin parts is they're almost kind of sticky. It's weird, and they leave fingerprints in them. And I'm really hoping those fingerprints don't transfer over to when I start painting this thing. But, we'll find out. Basically said only on the blue parts, so I'm going to take all the blue ones and all the blue pieces and put them in the oven. And supposedly that's supposed to finish curing everything. Let's see. Oh, one of the nicer parts is the rear main engine nozzles. And here they are here. Those came out beautifully. I really like the way these look. These came out good. So anyway, let's go back to halfway here. Oh, a little bit less. There we go. And now we'll go all the way out. Why not? There. What's that mean, George? Are you basically saying no? You're not going to do it? I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, I understand. I will be honest and say that this will probably be the last Moscato kit that I buy. I took a chance on the second one after seeing what it had gone through for the first one. It was kind of like iffy, but I decided to buy it, and yeah, we'll see. I'm not going to start this project right after the Tomahawk. I will say that. I think I need a break as far as this type of resin stuff. So I am going to take a little bit of a break from that. I'll probably do something, at least one more build prior to starting this one. Yeah, and I did notice too, like these are all thoughts I'm thinking of, popping in my head as I'm talking here. There's a lot of, actually this one, oh yeah, this gun, for some reason, this gun, you can see that, look at this big, it's almost like a crack. There's no crack in the resin though, but it's just this big, you can actually catch your fingernail on it. And you can see that line, it goes all the way down the side. So I'll probably have to, there's a rivet that's completely scraped off. One of these round little rivets is gone. There's actually two of them gone. I don't know what caused that, but I'm going to have to repair that. And then the other side, you'd think they would be identical, but this one just has a bunch of scratches in it, like from sanding. It's almost like poor body work when you see, like, especially when working on cars, and you can tell when a body shop has done shitty work. Then there's another huge on the bottom here. You can see that in the light. Are you sure the stickiness isn't mouth? Oh, mouse eating model kit, scary and disgusting. Yeah, I don't know. I can't prove it. It just looks like it to me. But I don't know what caused it. It could have been something just chipped it, but it does look a lot like little teeth marks on plastic, because we see it quite often in the industry. There's a pretty big mold line underneath this one too. It also looks like almost like a crack, but it's just a mold line. But it's on a flat surface. It shouldn't be too hard to fix. One of the other cool things this comes with, I'm going to put some of these parts away, is a pilot figure. The pilot figure looks pretty cool. So I'm going to pull some of his pieces out here. Got several options with the pilot figure. One second while I fish out all these pieces of the pilot. More of them in here. And an arm, a couple of arms. Yep, there we go, a couple legs. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. So here's the torso. Let me zoom in again. I'll just give a little bit of a zoom here. Now, to answer your question, George, is I don't think it is. It doesn't feel like that. I know it sounds gross, but I know what that feels like. And it doesn't feel like that. So come on, where's my zoom? There we go. So here's the torso. And the reason I knew there was differences because in the instructions it says this. It actually, even in the parts list, it mentions this waist armor as a separate piece, but now it's part of this actual mold. It's already on the torso, and then you've got one leg here. There's two. I don't know if they're really a left and a right, but probably is. I just have to figure that part out. But so anyway, these will go. Trying to hold these on, it's not that easy. These will go on like so, and then there's obviously a left arm and a right arm. But one of the cool things is you have a choice of two different heads. You've got one that has the helmet on and the visor, and there's actually some clear pieces that come with the visor that go in here. So you can have the blast shield put down or put up. And then you've also got the helmetless Chiron head here. So not too bad. Not the best sculpt. Kind of looks like he's smiling. And then you got a couple hands, left and right. So those have to cut off and build. But the cockpit actually comes with. I almost didn't find these because they were inside. But there's a seat back. It goes in here like this. Okay, seat back and then a lower seat here. So something like this. And then the pilot sits in here. Like so. And there's sides, there's controls and a bunch of other stuff that has to be added at console. There's even some wires that you have to make that don't come with the kit. They're brass wires that are like framework inside the cockpit. Quite a few little things. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do open or closed cockpit. I mean, I guess it would make sense that if you got the pilot figure, you might as well use it. I don't know. We'll see. I guess it depends on how much of a pain in the butt this turns into, if it all turns into being a pain because of construction wise. But other than that, it doesn't look too overly complicated. Kind of like the Tomahawk. It'll be most of the work will be prep work. I think once it gets down to painting, that'll go a lot quicker. But anyway, let's put this guy away and let's build something or start with some more weather. Oh, there's also a little baggie here too. Another piece of armor and a lot of the clear. I like the fact that there are some lenses on the legs and in the cockpit. There's little lights and they're all done in clear resin, which is nice. Even the gun support, that's another one of those polymer pieces. The hinges, if you have the cockpit open, those are polymer. So yeah, it's pretty nice. We'll see how much of a pain in the butt it turns into when it comes time to start building. Give me a second here. I'm gonna clean this up. Put this away, and we'll bring this back down to size. Oh, I'll do one more thing. I'll show you the decals. Those are actually pretty nice. I don't know where I threw them. Decals are the same type of decal like the Tomahawk, where there's no line or there's no carrier film, but they did come out quite nice. So you have to cut obviously pretty close as close as you can to the actual emblem, whatever it is, whatever decal you're using. But then you can apply that. They seemed like they worked pretty well, especially the ones I put on the Tomahawk. They worked out pretty good. So anyway, that's it. 1/7/2 scale, massive tactical battle pod gouge. Alrighty then, let's take this little guy, get him out of here. That poor thing. That thing has been bounced around for years and years. All right, so I'm going to start the waist, because what I want to do, and I want to finish the waist this week, because like I was saying earlier, I have to glue this in place, and oops, I got these reversed. So when I pop this in, I can press this in, and it'll actually stay in on the hip joint. See, if I press on it like that, and then what does it do? Falls off. So if I hold this in and I get these two together like that, okay. Now from the top view, it's kind of hard to see, but this is the part that I need to make sure is flat. Now, what I've been doing also is working on something I was talking with my buddy Angel about, was how to, rather than just gluing the torso on here, and it might behoove me to connect this somehow with some magnets, some strong magnets for ease of transportation. I could just pop this off. I could take the arms out, and it would come. That way I could transport it a lot easier. Even though, like, the bottom section will be completely glued together and in place, the arms will be, they'll move a little bit, and the doors that go over the missiles here will also be glued in the open position. So, but it might be easier than attaching this permanently than to fashion some kind of magnets. Now, years ago when I built my first 148 Valkyrie, my hangar, or that launch diorama, I used 10 millimeter. What's up, Julius? I'm sorry, let me read your question. Is there going to be an issue with glue, primer, paint with all these different types of plastic resin? Are you referring to the gouache, right? I don't think so. I mean, he had some. This isn't the use of the polymer, from what I understand from what he told me. The use of the polymer isn't new. He just redesigned some of the pieces and cast them in polymer because of his experience and issues that came up later on when people were assembling the kit, maybe even himself. So he made these improvements by casting these pieces in the polymer, or changing some of them to the polymer. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not. It's not supposed to. It should be fine with CA glue. That's what I'll end up using. But the joints and stuff are strengthened in a way that they can hold their weight. That's why he, by using the brass tubing and some of the acrylic rod pieces in the hip joints there, to strengthen those joints so they can hold the weight a lot easier than before. So anyway, I guess we'll cross that bridge when I get there. So what I was doing, getting back to this, trying to figure out how this is a pretty deep hole in the waist section here, and then even the one in the torso. I mean, it goes in about more than a half an inch, almost like 5/8 maybe. I don't know. Let's see. I got a little tape measure here. Actually, you know what? I got one better than that. I got a caliper. All right, so we can see exactly how deep this goes down. About there. So yeah, that's 24 millimeters. It's pretty deep. And it's almost an inch. Almost an inch deep. So I was trying to figure out how to build up that that hole. I'm probably going to end up using some epoxy, two-part epoxy putty to fill up the area and shorten the gap between these. But what I did was I used my circle cutter, and I cut out some nice blanks and laminated these together, and then I even made a hole in. See, I got to get the right. It's too bright. You can't see that. There is actually a hole in the top here. There we go. Once I shade it, you can see it there. So I can glue a 10 millimeter magnet in there, and maybe pop this inside here with a couple of magnets, and that way when I put the piece on the other side on, it'll pop right in and hold. Now, these 10 millimeter magnets are pretty strong, the biggest ones that I have. And now I got that stuck in there. I had this same problem before. There we go. Come out. Okay. So that's a thought. I'm just trying to come up with ideas. I was thinking maybe like build it up, but I think I might just press in some epoxy putty down here and flatten this out and bring it up to maybe 10 millimeters from the lip, That way my magnets will come together and basically join in the center. If I do it right, I can, basically glue these in place kind of down just barely under the level of the top of this ring, and then they should click together pretty good. I may even use like 3 or 4 of them kind of in a circle. I've got more of them here. These are just stuck together, really stuck together. But if I put them side by side like this, maybe put 3 of them together in a triangle, those will fit in there. Yeah, that would be even stronger. 3 on each side, that'd be definitely strong. So that might be what I do. And we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out when I get there. But for now, I'm just working on trying to get the chipping done on this and the weathering, and then gluing these pieces together and having the lower body just basically freestanding by itself. So, let's get cracking here. Wet my whistle a bit. All right. Okay. Once again, this is Mr. Color number 41, which is called Red Brown. It is a flat color. Now, George, in particular, I know I can say this because he commented on it once, so I know he's seen this technique before. When I did one of my Warhammer commissions, doing this type of chipping effect by using a different color than the base paint color underneath, and then putting the silver over the top of it. It's a 2-step process, but it looks like it recreates like deep chipping. And you're going to have some scratches that just basically go through the paint and don't get through the primer. But then you're going to have other scratches and chips that go deeper than that. So that's where the silver comes in. Now, I know silver is kind of a stark color, and this is pretty bright. Even though this is super iron, it's not quite as bright as the silver. It's still pretty bright. But after that, I'm going over it with a lot of these pastels, and that tones it down really far. Like here, for example, I mean, if you look at the front of the leg, you can see some of those, like right here. You can see some of those chips. Now, without that pastel over the top of that, it would be much, much brighter. By doing that, it tones it down quite a bit. In some cases, it tones it down completely. Like you can see the corners here. They're not quite as bright. Like this was the first leg I did. You can still see some of those edges, but not that bright. And that's what I'm going for. I want to be able to, I want to know that you want to see them, but not be like, oh my God, those are just like freshly chipped up. This is something that's been out in the field for a while. So it's getting beat up, and there's going to be dust and dirt and grime and crap all over it. That's why, like on the hips joints here, see this, all the grease, like this big ball joint. I've used a bunch of those, a lot of that, the oil brushers here to make that look like there's just, grease coming out of that joint and running down the inside of the leg there. Both sides have that. So even like the ankle, the ball joint on the ankle, same thing. Want to make it look like these joints are, they've been serviced and they're not watertight. They're gonna leak grease and dirt. It's gonna collect. So anyway, let's get going here. I guess we'll just start in the front. I mean, particularly in that area that I had to repaint, and we'll chip it up. I always go a little bit harder on the edges, like the corners of panels, because those are going to be the places that are going to receive more. The edges where panels rub together, even like even when you see construction equipment, when you have two pieces of machinery that are painted the same color, but then they rub against each other, they bang into each other. and those areas get chipped. Paint gets blemished, things like that. So and just briefly before this dries, you can see what we're doing. We're just adding little chips here and there, random. But there's a little bit of a lip here, so there's going to be, you know, some more scratches that would show up in those areas. All right, I'm going to focus on this. I want to get this area. This is that part that I repainted. So I really want to touch this and disguise that area that I had painted. It's just a little heavy. I've got a couple of little cloths here that I can rub off. Okay. So I'm just going and now by doing this, you won't be able to see that transition between the decal and the paint. It'll actually just turn into a blemish. Can I zoom in while you work? Yeah, certainly. Absolutely, Nick. I'll try not to get too crazy, but that looks like a good enough zoom. If you guys need to be closer than that, I can do that. I'm experimenting with the angles of this camera because, you know, when I back all the way out, I get more of the front of the table here in front of me. But as I zoom in, it's almost like it narrows it down to this area here. So I have to reach out a little bit further. As I play around with this camera, I'll save a bunch of camera positions, and that way it, you know, I'll get it adjusted right, and that way I won't be messing around with it so much. I'll just be able to push a button, and it will go right to that position. So some of these areas, you know, as I put more of this brown on, I know I'm going to go back and do the silver over the top of it, and just get that, you know, some of those chips that went deeper than just the primer. So essentially, what I'm doing with this brown color is these are scratches that went through the top layer of paint and got in there to those primer areas. You'll see what I'm talking about as we get further into this. I'll go, before we leave tonight, I'm going to make sure I do a little bit of that silver, whether I'm even done with this, all of the brown chipping or not. I'll go back and do some of the silver so everybody can see what that final effect looks like. And sometimes I'll even like hold a piece up, like, okay, where would these two panels rub together, you know, and see where the orientation is of the other parts, and make sure, like, would there be chipping here or would it not be? Obviously, there's not much on top of the legs because those are pretty much covered. There's a little bit exposed here, so that's why I put some chipping out here. But as far as where the ball joint is and where the hip attaches, there's not going to be any chipping there because there's nothing that's going to rub against those areas. And that's where I had to learn the hard way when I was doing my first model like this and trying to use this kind of chipping, was I just went overboard because I didn't realize, you know, not every single panel is going to have a chip on it. There might be a scratch, a little tiny bit here and there, but it's not going to be this. You know, it was ridiculous. One of these days I'll bring it out of the cabinet and I'll show everybody what I'm talking about. Not tonight. So how's that working, Nick? Is that a little bit better? You can kind of see what's going on. I'm trying to stay out here in front. I've gotta scoot forward to make sure I'm in frame. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Nice. Good idea, Nick. I appreciate the input. It does make sense to kind of do this a little bit closer so everybody can kind of see along with what's happening. And from that distance, I guess, on my screen, I mean, I don't even have it full screen because I can't see the comments if I go out of if I go to full screen, I mean, I can't see what people are saying in real time that easily. So I typically leave it with just the smaller screen on. But there again, it's further away. God, people are blowing up my phone left and right. If you guys can hear those beeps going off, that's my phone. I don't know who's messaging me. Looks like I chipped the paint here, and when I dropped it one of these times, well, we'll just make that a chip then, right? What the fuck is that noise? Good Lord. That's just everybody either watching or commenting on the show, I guess. All right. Also feeling 100% again. I know last week I was kind of sick and not really feeling all that well, but I struggled through it. I'm feeling a lot better this week. We've had a few people at work go down with COVID again, but not me. I was just sick. So I'm into a long scratch here. There we go. So yeah, that looks pretty good. You can stream on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. That's cool. Yeah, I can select up to 3 with my current subscription to StreamYard. I can select 3 different locations. If you do the free one, you just only get 1. So originally when I started, I think I was just doing YouTube. Maybe even just Facebook. I can't remember now, but I stepped up and started paying for the minimal StreamYard access, and that allows me to pick 3 locations. So I went with those 3. I can't do. Instagram isn't one of those 3 to choose from, as far as that's concerned. So so that's why I don't use. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just placing this down because I want to make sure where I'm putting these chips is going to be in a reasonably area where they would actually get chips. You know, obviously it's an area that's covered up and not going to be easily accessed by things. I don't want to put those, chipping in an area that typically wouldn't get damage. But because the front of this whole, the cod piece, if you were, as you will, is pretty much going to take the brunt of everything under the torso. So there will still be quite a few chips here. Gnostics, how you doing? Nice to see you. I don't think I've seen you before. Maybe I have. If I have, I apologize. I don't always remember everybody's name. What did I do with my brush? I dropped my paintbrush and now it's being all weird. All right. I think I got it fixed. Yeah, it wasn't acting right. I was trying to paint something and it kept kind of like separating on me. You start getting really crazy. You start transferring like one chip to the next panel, like what would happen if something came across and bounced off two panels. That's kind of what I got going here. I've got a chip coming in here to the front, and then it continues on to that front brace, that support. And what I'm doing with the tweezers is occasionally I'll come across a piece of lint that got caught in the clear coat. And as I'm working through this weathering process, I come across those and I just remove them. That's what I use the tweezers for. All right. So we're at about 7. So what I'll do is in a minute here, I'll let this dry just for a few seconds because these are lacquers. They dry very quickly, so I don't have to wait too terribly long. But I will I'll break out the silver and do a little bit of that so everybody can see what the two tones look like. So this sits down on here. There's not going to be a ton right there where the bearing would be, like that waist joint. There's not going to be a lot there. Maybe on those front facing parts, but not like a few in here and here, but not really up here. Just not the area. What I will do though is I might put some grime and grease in there to make it look like, that big joint is going to squeeze out some dirty areas, and so yeah, I'll just do 1 or 2 in between here. That way I don't have too much. There might be a couple on the flats, but these flat top areas, but not much. It's pretty good. It's easy to go overboard, so it's why you got to kind of take your time, sit back and look at it, add a little more, maybe, test fit it like this, see what it looks like. Okay, does that look good? Do I need to add a little more? And then go from there. And that's kind of not exposed either. This bottom edge might actually get some action. Let me see here. So what I'm going to do is kind of put this on the legs real quick. Yeah, a little bit. Okay, what I was looking at was these sides here. Is how much exposure would those get? And they're pretty exposed, so there'll be some scratching on there too. This around this corner. I'm gonna do the same over here. Okay, after this, there's one little piece, then I'll get the silver. Not gonna be too much here, but just a little bit. That looks pretty good. All right, clean my brush, get ready for silver. So everybody can see that before we leave tonight. And if we have enough time, I'll show you the pastels on there too, and kind of give you an idea how that blends everything all together and really completes the whole effect. Okay, again, so this is number SM203, which is the super metallic super iron. Yeah, super iron. Where did my stir stick go? There it is. No, that's not it. Where's my stir stick? Oh, there it is. Hiding. I like these metallics because they don't require much thinning. They're already pretty thin to begin with. In fact, I did thin this one the other day a little bit because it started to get a little bit thicker on me. But when you usually buy them brand new, they're pretty thin already. All right, so this is going to be a lot less, or this step takes a lot less time because there's not as much area to cover. We're not doing every single chip, just the big ones, the ones that would show some bare metal. So go in the corners here. And sometimes it's just a tiny touch, just to give a little bit of glint, doesn't take much. And not every single one of them will have a mark. Let's see. This one over here. Whoa, that was close. I almost knocked over my jar. That would have been bad. Fortunately, I think I have another bottle of this in case I did that, but I don't want to knock it over. All right. So you can kind of see how that's coming together. Those little shiny bits. Got a few more to do. Those areas where the chips just went a little bit deeper. What's up, MacDeal? How you doing, buddy? Manny, what's going on, Manny? I'm just doing some chipping. Highlighting some of those areas with deeper scratches that would have a little bit of bare metal. No, this isn't going to be left to that shiny silver, though. I will be going over it with either some rust or some mud. Those two colors that on the pastels here, rust and mud, are the two that I've been using, and that will give me the effect that I'm looking for. All right, I think that's pretty good the way it is. I've got most of those. Yeah, it was close, right? I've got most of those chips done. So now you can kind of see just not every one of them, but just some of those that are going to be, signify a deeper scratch. There we go on the other side. And I may go back and add a little more of the brown in there. We'll see when I get there. But for now, I can let that sit. And I'm going to, normally I would do the whole piece, but for the sake of the show, I'm going to stop in the front here. I'll finish the back half later. I'm going to actually get some of the pastels. I'm going to let this dry for a second. And then I'll break out the pastels and we'll show you the whole effect and how that works. Now there might be easier and better ways to do it. To do this kind of thing. This is what I've been doing lately, and it's kind of developed over the years. But somebody else may have a very different way of doing it, and that's fine too. Usually I start with rust. So this is color set B. Comes with white, soot, and rust. And then I've got the set A, which is sand, light sand, and mud. I'm just using the mud on that. I'm using the soot and rust on this one. Soot, not so much, just in a few areas. But I'm gonna let those silver ones dry just a little bit more. Yeah, almost there. There's really not The lacquers dry so very quickly, so it doesn't take long. It should be manageable in about 30 minutes when they, it won't be completely cured, but they're not going to come off on my fingers. They're a little bit blurred. That's okay because I'm smudging everything up with the rust and stuff like that. So we'll start with this one in the center here. Just basically go straight down the middle of that decal almost. And I'm just doing light rust, enough to discolor it, similar to the way I did the Abrams tank. Very, very similar. I'm not changing much at all. So you can see those lines there. When I do the mud after this is when it really mucks it up. It looks good now, but when I get that final step done, then it really looks like, wow. It looks grimy and just dirty. When I use these pads have two sides to them. So typically I'm applying it with one side, and then the other side, if I make a mistake or I need to take some off, I'll use the clean side to do that. That's how I'm doing this. I'll move this over so it's a little bit more in the center. So when you go over that silver, it just takes the sheen away. You still get a little bit of that bright glint at the right angle, but it's not just this stark, shiny metal anymore. It's just a little bit of and I'm using the edge. I'm not using the flat so much of this pad. I'm kind of using the edge because I want to be able to control my streaks down the front of the piece, because everything is going to travel in the same direction. Rain streaks, all that stuff will all go the same way. So I don't want these big fat lines on some of these smaller chips. They just need to be a tiny, thin line. Like I said, if I get a little too much, I can go back over it with the other side and kind of blend that away a little bit. Yeah, it's starting to look like starting to come together. Oops, there we go. All right, let me get the top here, these top pieces, and then we'll be ready for the brown. Now, if you have different colors, MAC, you may have to use different colored, pastels. These are the ones that work good with this color scheme. It gives a subtle effect, of rusty, dirty, but there's enough contrast against the main color that it shows up. It really works well with this color. All right, I'm about ready to a little bit of that brown. Okay, so that's what, let go this way. There we go. Now so there we go. That's the first layer. Now I'm going to muddy it up a bit. So I'm going to take this one and shut it down, open up, set A. See, I need this one. There we go. Now this, I'm going the opposite direction because this kind of simulates that ground dirt coming up from the bottom. So I'm going up from the other direction, but you'll see what it does. And then I'm also highlighting these edges. It also darkens them slightly and kind of gives a little more worn effect of those edges. Same thing with this one. If I get a little bit in the wrong spot, I can go back and just soften it up with the other side of the pad that doesn't have anything on it. There we go. You notice I went from the bottom up, but now I'm going from the top down on this edge because I'm kind of bringing those two halves together in a way that where the panel now it looks just dirty and kind of grimy, you know. By darkening up those edges, it's almost acting like a little bit of a pre-shade because this is a flat surface here. So a lot of dirt accumulation will land on those, whether it be an oil leak either or something like that too. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to sit. As I go, there we go. I'm just kind of going over each corner just to highlight those edges. You see how that works. It works pretty well. Go over this one. And what I'm blowing off, I don't know if you guys have ever used these before. I know a lot of you have, but for the ones that haven't, they do create dust as you're going. I mean, I'm applying it pretty heavy on these applicators. So as I'm applying this pastel, it's leaving behind little bits of dust. I do have a static, anti-static brush that I could use too, but so that's how we get that grimy look to it. I think it looks pretty good. What do you guys think? So I started from that very stark, very clean, straight paint, you know, just like this is here. And then we end up with this. So the whole thing is going to have this same kind of effect with it. There might not be as many chips and stuff on the shoulders up higher up on this thing, but it will be, thanks, Julia. It will look muddy. We'll have this dirty fake, and just by highlighting those edges with the mud and coming down from the top, but also up from the bottom, because as you know, as this thing's stomping around, there's going to be dirt and stuff, that dust that's going to fly up and collect on those areas. Now I still have the whole back section to do, these vents under here, these vents in the back. I've got a little bit done here because I was trying to, again, simulate that kind of a greasy oil leak between where these ball joints would be mounted in the legs. There's going to be a bearing there, or some kind of a big, load bearing joint that's going to have grease in it and stuff, and some of that stuff's going to come out. So I may add a little bit more, but this looks pretty good. I might use some of the oil brushers here around this area in the front and the back, if that torso had a big bearing there, there's going to be some grease and some deposits coming out of that, and I might actually apply more of those, and brush that down into these areas here, and maybe even collect some on these flat areas, and I can always reapply the pastels if need be. But so now this looks pretty good. I think if I place this on here, look, it looks pretty close to the other piece, and it fits. I didn't overdo it. You see what I'm saying? Both pieces look like they belong together. Thanks, thanks, Manny. Appreciate you, buddy. So yeah, I'm happy with this, with the way this effect looks, and it's dirty. It's not too terribly overdone, and when the whole thing's together, it should look good. I've been thinking ahead about what kind of a base I'm going to do with this. I'm not sure how crazy I'm going to get with a base on this one. I spent a lot of time with the Valkyrie making that base. I'm not going to do something that nuts. I'm kind of hoping to get this done before the end of the year, but we'll see. It shouldn't be too much longer. The weathering part's going pretty quick. I just need to. I got to think about the pilot figure, what colors I want to paint that with, and why is my wife blowing the phone up during a broadcast? Anyway, that's what you guys are hearing. So we'll continue doing that next week. We'll see where I'm at with this. Hopefully, I'll have most of the weathering done, and I was hoping tonight to have this glued together with actually, let me zoom out now. That we're done with this, I can zoom out. I was actually hoping to have the torso or the lower waist here glued together with the legs, but I still need to finish weathering this, and then I can focus on that. And I think what I may do is, it might be easier to glue the leg portions onto this level with these vents. I don't know yet. I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do this in stages, because I got to be able to set this flat. I want the legs and the feet to be flat on the ground. So I don't know if gluing these on the waist first and having the legs, and then I can maneuver the ball joints around on the ankles to get those to sit flat. Because obviously I want the legs spread slightly. It's not going to be straight up and down. There's going to be a little bit of angle there, and then coming out from the waist, the ankles can be adjusted. The foot can be adjusted at that point to sit flat if I have those. That might be my best plan, and that also will help me to make sure this is flat. Because once I put it in here, as long as I can move the ankles around to kind of get it and glue those in place where this is flat, then I know the torso is going to go on flat as well. So that's going to probably be the next biggest challenge, is making sure that this is flat, and so it doesn't look like it's standing at a wonky angle or anything like that. So anyhow, with that, my friends, I think we're going to call this one an evening. I appreciate each and every one of you guys that came out tonight. Now let's switch over here. Look at my face. Hey, my face. Come on. Switch back. There we go. Hey, guys. Thanks again for coming out. I appreciate each and every one of you. Every week, you guys support me and George, Manny, Nick, Angel, Tyler, all my friends that come out every night, every weekend, or every week, I should say, and help me do this. I appreciate it. So, with that, be good humans. Hey, Santos, you always come in right at the end. Santos, at least, hopefully you've been here the whole time and not just right now, because I always wrap up around 7:30. So, anyway, thanks again, George. Good night. I appreciate you and every one of you guys that come out. Like I said, have a good evening. We'll see you guys next week. Be good humans. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone.